So last Thursday, I introduced a particular practice that sort of took us through various stages of our meditation practice. We continued with that on Monday, midday meditation. So on Monday, the midday session, actually, I gave probably about a 25-minute talk on the actual practice. It was very spontaneous. We didn't plan to do it that way, but it sort of just filled out a little bit more about what the benefit of the practice and kind of what we're angling at with the practice. So it would be great if perhaps I don't want to, I mean, some of you are here again, so this would be your third time of hearing, a similar kind of thing. So I'm reluctant to go through the whole thing, but maybe if I can just ask any questions from you about last week's practice, those of you that were here, if you have any questions, if you've taken it on through the week, and if there's anything that you would like clarified about the practice before we continue, because I think unless there's any strong resistance to the idea, I think it would be nice to follow on with this approach for another week, just so we can you can get a little bit more into the swing of it. So just opening up first of all for any questions or points of clarification or reflections about the last week's practice, and if you've taken that on as your practice through the week.
Well, I'll start.
Thanks, Emma.
I tried it on my own, but I felt like having you guide it helped me. I felt that my mind was still too active, sort of doing it on my own. So I was looking forward to tonight, actually, to like just give it
another whirl.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Lovely. Yeah, I understand that. Yeah. Anybody else? Julie, you've done it a couple of times now with me. How did it feel for you?
No, I feel like on Monday the re-explanation was really helpful to be much more conscious about the different stages. And I felt like I was sort of able to let go and sort of release much more there as we went through it. Unfortunately, that was sort of then compressed, so I didn't feel like I went through that whole exploration. But it was sort of definitely a sort of deeper experience of the first part of that process.
Yeah, great. Okay, good. We because it's only a 35-minute session on Mondays, and we did about 20 minutes of exploration. So is there anything about the, sorry, Julia, I know you're getting comfortable, but is there anything that you think with the explanation that was particularly helpful to clarify the practice? Just so we're picking out the kind of pith points rather than me giving a 20-minute blurb.
I found it particularly helpful, that sense of going into the breath and then having that feeling of expansiveness. And then when you focus back on the body again, bringing that back with you. So it's not just that reversion to how things was previously, but you bring back that element of that experience into your a more embodied experience then afterwards. So I think that was really helpful for me to sort of realize that, it's a supplement, even though you're sort of going back to that embodied.
Okay, so I'll give as concisely as I can. I will give the kind of guidance or instructions. We've got longer to do the meditation practice tonight, and again, my recommendation is, if you like this approach, then it is helpful if you can kind of take elements to it. You may only use the first couple of parts of the practice. You'll understand when I give the instructions, and kind of settle into that perhaps for your practice through the week, whether it's for 10 minutes or 20 minutes or an hour or whatever it is that you have. Okay. So the instructions, they're really quite simple, but we're basically, we start with settling in, as we always do, settling into the body, and that's an invitation to kind of recognize that quite often we're very consumed in the mental mode. And so we use the physicality of the body to kind of draw our attention inward, to start to feel the sensation of the body and that sense of settling and the steadiness that arises from coming into contact with the immediacy of the body experience. So at that point, we're interested in the physicality of the body, the sense of heaviness and connection with the ground, and the feeling of the air, and those kinds of things. Included in that, then obviously, as we really come in and settle, we become very aware of the sensation of the breath. And so we're feeling the breath in the first round. We're feeling the breath as part of that kind of body experience. So we're feeling the body expanding and contracting as the breath comes in and out. And we use the movement of the body in relation to the breath as a way continuing to kind of anchor us inward to stay a little bit more focused with the immediacy of the experience of the body. Then the next step, if you like, is that we move, if you like, into the spaciousness of the breath. So once the breath feels very, very relaxed, when the mind feels more relaxed and settled, the quality of the breath will change. And when that happens, there is the opportunity to really kind of shift the awareness quite consciously, quite deliberately into the breath. And there is a conscious relinquishing of the attachment to the body, or the kind of interest in the physicality of the body, and we're really able to shift into the more subtle aspects of the sensations of the breath. So I'll often talk about that as the subtle breath, the kind of those deeper currents of the breath. So we're no longer just kind of focusing on the mechanics or the movement of the breath, but we start to feel a sense of spaciousness with the breath. That you should all be pretty familiar with this. It's not new to your experience, but just to put it very clearly. So we move then, so we want to dissolve completely into this sense of spaciousness with the breath. And we really settle in and let the breath kind of, if you like, hold consciousness or hold us in that sense of presence with the breath. So it's a very, very light, and really the sense of the body really disappears quite a lot, if not completely. So there isn't this kind of sense that you are now sitting and you're concentrating on the breath. There's a dissolving of the body experience, feelings in its regular sense, and there's a complete immersion in the sense of space and flow of the breath. Again, when the system is quite settled and comfortable in that state, and there is still that awareness, there is a flow, there is a sense of movement and easefulness that is involved in that breath, even on that subtle level. When we feel comfortable, we consciously then shift the language I introduced. I quite like it. If it doesn't work for you, you can find your equivalent. But for me, the opening into the heart space, which can mean lots of different things. But for me, the invitation here is moving into a space that is it's like the stillness that permeates everything. Really, it's a sense of deep intimacy and connection. It's a sense of vastness, and there isn't there's not a focused object as such. You're no longer focusing on the movement, for instance. All of that dissolves. So we're willing at that point to let go of the breath. And the experience of the breath is our meditation focus point, letting go of that completely and dissolving into this kind of vast, spacious field of the heart space. Now, at that point, different things can happen depending on the state that you're in. Sometimes in that state you can have some clarity and some movement of energy and emotion that comes up. Please don't turn away from that. Take care, staying with a sense of steadiness and love and patience with whatever arises, remembering that we're not wanting to push away, but we're also not interested in elaborating and getting kind of caught up in our regular mode of relationship with whatever arises. So to really be open to a sense of freshness in the experience. Okay, but at that point, it's a very subtle, boundless sense of the experience that we're interested in that quality. So if the invitation from me is that we kind of reach that point, but one, you don't feel either ready for it, or it just doesn't resonate at the time, it just doesn't seem relevant to your experience, and you actually do want to stay with that sense of spaciousness with the breath, then feel free to do that. Okay, and just let my words will still relate to the experience in the breath. So then, so at that point where we're really wanting to, at that level, dissolve or be interested in allowing all of the ideas, all of the objectivity and subjectivity to dissolve completely in that state. So this sense of I and me and mine and other, all the stories of who I think I am, responsibilities, all of those things completely dropping away at this point. There's no real reference point here. Okay, and then the invitation is from that, as Julia pointed to, is we start moving back through. So we then shift back to the breath as the focus, but we want to bring the quality of that spaciousness and that openness really, and actually that contact with that deep permeated intimacy and stillness to kind of come through and inform our relationship with the breath and the flow of the breath and the spaciousness of the breath, and still not taking on our regular idea of breathing or the regular idea of what the breath feels like or is or isn't. Is that making sense? I'm giving these instructions now. I will do my best to be very thin with instructions once we start going, so you've got the space to journey as you need to. Then the invitation after a certain period of time is then to again shift from the breath, the subtle breath aspect, back into coming into complete contact with the physicality of the body once more. So actually genuinely feeling again the weight and, if you like, the form and sensations of the body. But if you can do this again with this beautiful sense of invitation of freshness, so it's not, you don't want to be just kind of go back and think your way back into the body, but actually as we're coming back through, if we can allow the the movement and openness from these layers to really permeate and open up a new relationship with the body experience as it is, not the way we think it is. And this is primary, and which means that the identification of the I, me and mine associated with the body is completely irrelevant at this point. Okay. As I indicated last week, we can go backwards and forwards, as many times as you like. Given this introduction, we'll probably go there and back, but in your own practice, you could do that a couple of times if it felt comfortable. The last stage is that I will invite you, and please do this, it's an essential part of the practice. The last step is that we open the eyes. And I know we're looking at computer screens tonight, but here we are. So when the eyes open, the invitation here is again that we want to be in this kind of genuine deep contact with each of these levels simultaneously. So that vast open space, the kind of the sense of flow and movement and sensitivity, and the sense of the body in the physicality sense, and the openness into the relational world, so that we are now sharing and recognizing that on this level there is this that we would ordinarily describe or identify and relate to as me, and there is all of you in a particular kind of a way. But if we can now have a new relationship that doesn't kind of cut all of this up and compartmentalize in really unhelpful ways, perhaps there is the capacity for us to stay open to the richness, the diversity, but stay in contact with this deep, pervasive connection and I can't think of the right word, but I think you with me? Okay, all right. So we're going to dive straight in now. Again, I apologize for that. I'm really, these instructions are long. Let's get comfortable. As I said, at this point, I will try and let my instructions be more spacious, to not kind of dictate too much, but just to kind of give you the reminder of those steps. And the trick is for you as the practitioner here is to kind of trust the flow of this, rather than kind of charging forward, because in the charging forward, all you're going to be doing is constructing a mental idea of what you think it's meant to be. Yeah, so, and that's the very thing that we're kind of exploring, the unraveling from that tendency to see what is actually possible. So if it's more appropriate for you to stay with the sense of the body and the breath, and to really just keep letting the invitation of the dropping away of all those labels and ideas and concepts, and just letting them kind of dissolve and dissolve and dissolve, then that's perfect. Yeah. Okay. So making sure you have everything that you need. Letting the eyes closed when you're ready. We'll just start with a couple of deep, slow breaths. So I'm going to encourage you now just to let the in-breath be quite slow and deep and relaxed. And I'd like you to exhale through the mouth if it's comfortable. We're just going to sit with this breath for a few moments. So just inhaling, slow, deep and relaxed. And exhaling slowly out through the mouth. Let's just move at your own pace. We'll do 2 more breaths like this. After the second exhalation, just allow now the breath to come evenly out through the nose. Take some time to bring your attention to the immediate sense of the body. Feel the weight of the body. Feeling the places of contact of the body on the cushions or the chair. Feeling the full support. Allowing the body to relax completely. Finding a sense of home in the body. Allow the face to soften completely. Encouraging without tension some sense of lengthening of the spine. Just notice how this gives a bit more space for the breath to become more relaxed and easeful. Allowing the abdomen to relax. And letting the breath just come and go as the body requires. Take a moment to really feel and clarify a very natural sense of stability through the body, a stillness that is not held, stability that's not rigid. Letting the body rest in a very natural state. The breath is feeling quite comfortable, quite easeful, and the body is quite comfortable. You're invited now to shift quite clearly and consciously, to rest completely in the flow of the breath. Opening to a sense of space, feeling a sense of expansion, feeling a sense of relinquishing. Allowing the image of the body and indeed the image of the breath to dissolve completely. Letting go of any efforting of the breath, letting go of any control. Just trusting in this very natural, intelligent flow of the breath, coming and going. Like an ocean swelling, expanding. and receding. Little by little, allowing the edges of the breath itself to dissolve. And letting the idea of the in-breath and the out-breath dissolve. Allowing the breath to become more and more subtle. Consciousness more and more expansive, boundless. The system is feeling quite subtle. Consciously stepping through, bringing awareness to the heart center, whatever that means for you. Opening to a deep, pervasive stillness. To the direct knowing of connection and interdependence. To a space of love, kindness. A sense of love and kindness that's without an object or a subject. This open space of the heart-mind. Space of deep healing. Allowing any residual sense of self, the identities that we hold through the days and nights. Letting these ideas dissolve completely to the vast openness. Relinquishing any residue of I, me, and mine. And open to a lush sense of freedom. Simple and sweet. Resting here. Open to the deep stillnesses. Undisturbed. Unshakable. without moving your awareness. Just simply allow the sense of the breath to be included in the experience. As though the breath is breathing directly in the heart space. Feeling the gentle flow of the breath and a deep stillness that remains undisturbed. Without tension or contradiction. Feeling the breath flow. Still the absence of a sense of I, or the taking possession of the mind. Just simply breathing. Starting to open up and include the sense of the body. Still and steady. The breath coming and going. And still in contact with the unshakable. Feeling the sensations of the body, the weight, the shape, without allowing an image of the body to land. Letting the experience of the body be fresh. Feeling each breath fresh. The whole experience, just as it is. When you feel ready, letting the eyes open, taking a soft gaze. Feeling the heart space, sense of connection, pervasive stillness. A gentle flow of life all happening. Letting any stories and ideas, images of the I, of the me, the stories of you and other, letting it dissolve into irrelevance. Sitting together. Neither separate nor one. Letting the eyes close. Feeling the body, the breath, the heart space, simultaneous. The contradictions only arise in the mind. Fed by the ego. Fueled by our cravings and aversions. Bringing the palms together, the heart center, and just in your own way, letting the head bow down. Take your moment of reflection. Giving space for insight. Clarifying a motivation to move in the world with love, wisdom, courage. So I would like to encourage and ask anyone to share their reflections or questions.
I have a question. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Go for it.
Yeah. So there was a part of the meditation where we were focusing on love and kindness, and the invitation was to not have a subject or an object.
Yeah.
And as you said that, I had like a face in mind that I was picturing to like bring up the feeling of love.
Yeah.
And then when you said that, I kind of pushed the face away and wasn't able to find where the love was coming and going without a representation of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice. Thanks, Freya. So it's often the way that we're so used to, and it's a lovely way into clarifying the quality and the experience of loving kindness. As often we use the image of a person or furry friend or whatever that evokes and opens up the kind of safety doors of the heart, if you like. And that's lovely. You certainly don't have to kind of push it away if that's the way that it opens for you. That's completely fine, Freya. You don't have to kind of squash that. But if you just sit with that and don't keep building the image. So, for instance, if for instance, if what came up for me was an image of Bruce, my furry friend of the past. So if that was an image, and the heart would most definitely feel quite expansive and moved by that image. But if I just rest in the experience and not continue to add to a story of Bruce and the memories and the identity and the wanting and all of those kind of extra bits that kind of maintain the image in that sense, then if I just stay with that kind of opening, that sort of upspring of that quality of and sense of love, then the image of it drops away. The image of the me and the other dissolves, and what is left is what is pointed to here. It's the experience, which is doesn't need to be object related. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So sometimes the object is the way that the door opens, and so that's fine. But if the encouragement is that rather than perpetuating the story that we need to, or the habit even, that we need to have an object to be able to access the upsurge and the spring of our natural sort of state of love. Yeah, that actually this is a kind of, if you like, an ever-present, always contactable quality within the being. And so the practice enables us to start to recognize that without the extras. So we want to kind of strip everything back, all the images, all the ideas, ultimately stripping it back, stripping it bare. And then we're no longer in the confused state of thinking that those things require an external something. Yeah. And once we know that, then it's no problem. Like, know it from a deep, very direct state, compared to just kind of the idea. You've heard people say that before, but yeah, that we want to actually use our practice sometimes to come to that as a clear, deep recognition in the immediacy. That love, in this sense, is not an external thing. It's not. There isn't a requirement of the other. Does that help, Freya? Does that?
Yeah, I think I would like less push away the way in.
Yeah. Yep, it's always the way in. So always whatever arises, I say this again and again in our practice, please, it doesn't matter what the instructions are, don't kind of turn, unless I actually say the instructions turn away, but that would be unlikely, but maybe I do, so I'll bracket it. But for the most part, the broad brush instruction is not to turn away from anything. Whatever arises is your way in. Whatever comes up in the heart and mind, that's the door that's open. And so don't push it away, because that's your door, But don't confuse the door for the, if you like, the space on the other side. Yeah,
that's lovely. Thank you.
Something I experienced a little bit quite clearly this meditation was, I guess, the unknown, or the gap in the thoughts, and then recognizing, this is always like it's the in every meditation, it's what I'm swimming in, but then I'm always kind of, the minute I touch it, it's like it's not that interesting. Rather I'll catch the next kind of thought. Something about just the way the sensitivity was cultivated. It's like that gap became really, the curiosity was like, there's this space between the thoughts. I don't know what it is, but I can just stay in this. It's very, it's a really, something about, it's a really deep experience. I can just, and I was able to just not have to define it. Not interested in define, just noticing that is just coming out of the experience. That was really,
lovely. That's great. And I think that what Bal's also pointing to nicely there is the kind of the recognition that we often, which we touched on a few weeks ago, we actually do make a priority of the thinking. Like our preference is to stay kind of with the, stay with, kind of stuck with the thoughts, rather than, the gaps between, or a sense of space or quietness, or and sometimes that habit is so strong and so convincing that we forget that that's not the full picture, that it's not the and we forget that there is kind of the option, if you like, to not be stuck. Kind of keep feeding that preferencing of thoughts. So I know what you mean. This I think kind of practice really invites us into, as you use the language of kind of those gaps. For me, that sense of stillness, or the quietness, whether it be the stillness or the quietness between the breaths, or between the thoughts, or between the coming and the going. This kind of meditation, these instructions, kind of, for me, kind of open up, or really invite us to kind of contact and be quietly curious and comfortable to rest in that deeper, pervasive state. Does that relate to what you're saying, Val? Just so I haven't reworded it. And the other point is remembering that there is, and this is the journey, really inviting us into this state, but also what I like about this kind of construction as the meditation is that it's not saying this is the peak experience, right? There's nothing here that I want you to take as though, like, get into that quiet stillness, or the gaps between the thoughts, or whatever it may be, that's a priority over everything else. This is opening to a depth of experience that is available and often unseen and unexperienced, with any real clarity. So we can become familiar with it, and we can start to recognize the pervasiveness of that quality through the whole of the experience of consciousness and life. Does that make sense? So it's like what Julia sort of said at the beginning, it's this kind of threading back through, staying in contact with, and realizing that if anything, from the kind of, if you like, the goal of the meditation is to, and I use this language loosely, but you know what I mean, is so we can actually have a taste, at the very least, a taste of a state that is not held, it's not contracted, it's not searching for anything, which is what I think that Nisha was pointing to, that when you said the resting of the eye, you know, it's not searching and not grabbing, not thirsty for anything, not, there's a quietening of that craving. And so we really settle into a very natural state, which does not ask anything to be different. So it's not turning away from the body, it's not turning away from the breath, it's not turning away from the thoughts, the feelings, the emotions, but actually inviting a recognition that all of this is part of the human experience. But so is this deep wisdom and contact and love and connection and sensitivity and stillness is also part of this extraordinary capacity of human consciousness. Also, yeah, and the invitation to recognize that when we let go in a very genuine sense, which is so much more difficult than to actually do than it is to say. So the shorthand, once we've kind of let go, or we're left less referenced by our regular sense of the I, me, and mine, when that's not the primary referencing point, then we are, the natural state of what we've just described is far more obvious. Yeah, we start to see that the stories and the ideas, the contraction around our distorted sense of I, me, and mine, which is relating to the grasping, is the only thing. It's a mind construction. And that compartmentalizes things and tells a story of tension and separation in a way where we don't recognize the kind of deeper truth. Are you with me, or have I lost you a little? Yeah.
Sam?
Yes,
Could
Daniele.
you elaborate a little bit? I think I know what you're talking about, but just what you're talking about, separation. I feel like, I know when you say that I, me, and my, I feel like on a level, I know what you're talking about.
Mm.
And then there's something else that just makes me just kind of can't get my head around it. I guess that's...
Sorry, thank you for asking the question.
I don't know.
There's a part of me that just wants to laugh because the question is already set up in one of those. Nisha, do you?
Yeah, so this something I've been pondering about is related to what Daniele has been saying. When the idea of dissolving the I, me, and mine is brought up, it is a really hard experience to like genuinely.
Oh yeah.
There's mice on the roof. I think he's barking at them. But recently I've been pondering this desire to be met and the desire to meet someone, and something about that, like when I, in every interaction, if I notice there's some sort of stickiness that's kind of getting in the way, right? And if I kind of peel back, it seems to come to that desire to meet a person, or a desire to be met. And I'm not sure, it's not fully formed, but something about that feels connected to a sense of self, or a sense of other and self.
Yeah.
It's not logical, but like when I kind of come to that place, when I notice this wanting to be met or wanting to meet, it dissolves something.
Yeah. So just to link those two statements and questions, Nisha, what you've talked about is one way that the I, me and mine can show up, and so that's the way that you're seeing it. And Daniele, it doesn't have to be in this sense of being met and so forth. That's a great example, but it can be in lots of different things. But the quality of it is this, when we start, and part of this is one of the things that we need to be curious in the day-to-day, moment-to-moment, when we start we start to recognize, I'm going to use the language of preferences rather than, so what you said, Nisha, is a type of preference. So in a particular point, you have a preference for a sort of a type of experience that says I'm going to be met or I'm going to meet, yeah? But our preference could be anything. And so when the preferencing is kind of leading, do you understand what I mean by that? Just so I'm not, yeah? When we're being led by our preference, then that's already showing you that there is, what's in the driver's seat is, if you like, the ego, just using shorthand. There's already some firm idea of the I, me, and mine. Yeah. That's kind of starting to kind of want to sort of, it's willing to kind of manipulate the play, if you like, to get what it wants. That's what I mean by preference. I'm not talking about benign preferences, that we all have preferences, but if we don't act on them in a way that's going to start causing disruption, then it's just a preference that comes and goes. It's not met, it's no problem. I'm talking about when we start feeling some friction when our preference isn't met. Yeah. So I really wanted to see a particular friend, and then they call and they cancel in the last minute. Yeah. And so I had a preference for something and it didn't happen. How do I respond to that? If I'm just orientating toward the I, me, and mine, the whole story of that, and I'm making my preferences kind of the primary mover there's most likely going to be a sense of frustration, disappointment, agitation. You with me, Daniele? Yeah. So those things are things that will let you know. They're like confirmation that it's already kind of been playing out from that place. So that mindfulness helps us, the mindfulness of recollection. Yeah, the mindfulness of the immediate experience enables us to really to see what's actually going on, to see what the drivers are in any particular experience. And when we start feeling disrupted emotions arising, we need to understand they don't come out of nowhere. They're coming because there's been some kind of grasping to the orientation of self as a primary focus of something that we're not willing to let go of. Yeah, that we're willing to hang on to for perhaps longer than is, healthy for anybody. Yeah. So it's not saying that, I mean, the way that I describe this, and I've said this many times, and I think it's a really helpful way into these teachings, is that don't conceptualize, don't create an elaborate concept of what you think not having a sense of self is, because that's just going to cause problems, right? So just don't worry about this sense of self. Just notice when the sense of self contributes to some problematic movement of emotions, thoughts, and actions in the world. Start to notice when the sense of self that comes up starts to dominate the encounters that you're having internally and externally. And use that then to kind of step back, use your recollection, use your understanding of the teachings to understand more and more and more of the subtleties of your relationship in that moment, what was actually going on. Yeah. And so what that enables you to then do is to actually start to notice also those moments where, and there's plenty of them, where there is absolutely no problematic sense of self in play at all. And it's not that you forget, like you've become kind of flaky and don't know where anything is or how it is to function in the world or anything like that. Perfectly clear, perfectly relaxed, perfectly functional. But there's just absolutely no ruffling. There's no problematic sense of self. And you start to notice that as well. You start to notice the freedom of that, freedom from the problematic. And then in that, using mindfulness and inquiry and self-reflection, you start to notice, well, what are the supportive kind of ingredients, if you like, for that experience of being free from the problematic. And this is the way these questions can be answered. It has to be through your own looking inward, seeing your inner life and the way in which there's a playing in the world, and starting to know that from your own experience with more and more clarity. Use the teachings as the guide, use the practices as the guide, but it's the real-time contact which is going to be the place where there can be the kind of the freeing up in a beautiful, profound way. Yeah. And that I just want to keep encouraging you, that's where it's at, rather than giving, I know this has been a long answer, sorry, but rather than giving like the short answer. And I gave Steve a very unsatisfactory response to his question last week about the body as well, because it has to be, I can't stress it enough, you have to find this for yourself. It's not about listening to somebody else's words. You use the words to go in and to know it for yourself. Yeah. Daniele, does that respond to your question enough that you don't leave feeling distant? Yeah.
No, I don't know what the question is, but this is going into, and correct me if I'm wrong, is this going into what you've once said to me about planting new seeds, and also about choice? Is this
yeah, well, once you start to notice when you're being driven by the kind of the preferencing and the self-obsession, like once you start to notice when you're playing out from that place, you will realize that there you are. The more we act out from that place, the more those patterns of behavior will continue. Yeah, we have to see them, and these are the times where that, when I said before about the language of not turning away, but these are the moments, like actually kind of changing those behaviors, changing those patterns of thought in the immediacy, finding another way of going forward or resting. That's when it's really effective. Yeah, and so then we shift the what are we planting when we go to that thing? We're planting wholesome seeds of kind of that will lead to more freedom and insight and understanding, or are we continuing to plant a nice thick crop of self-obsession? Yeah, which will bring with it a lot of disappointment and frustration for everyone around you and your own experience. So that's the choice we make. Yeah. So
it's a choice, and it's familiarity, or at least the resowing of a seed that might not be so freeing. As false security.
What is?
Oh, sorry. Then just the safety and security that we might get in replanting or cultivating something that might not be doing ourselves the best.
Yeah, exactly. But we get some immediate reinforcement, by holding on to our views and positions and all of those things. Yeah, definitely. So the I know I do use that language of I, me, and mine, because it covers the essentials, of what we think is I, the me, what we think is mine is the is kind of pointing to that as well. Yeah. We often identify through the body. We identify heavily with the thoughts and the relationship between the I, me, and mine, and the thoughts and reality. So if you think something bad about yourself, have you ever noticed how seriously you take it? Most people that I know, sensitive people, if a thought comes up and we feel like we've let somebody down, or whatever it may be, it can really kind of sit with us for a while and feel like we're really taking these thoughts seriously. And if we let them kind of compound and build and build and build, before we know it, we're so far from a place where we could be constructive and insightful with that as a reflection, you know, as a way of kind of looking at our behavior and coming to understand it and disentangle from it and finding some freedom. We actually get so bound up and wound up in it that it makes it more and more difficult to have clarity around it, to let go of those habits at all. We're just charging it up. Yeah. So do you think that this might be a practice that you might be interested in trying to take yourself through to some degree through the week? Rebecca, was it the instructions clear enough that you felt like you would be able to take yourself through it maybe?
The instructions were extremely clear. I thought that's the first time I ever did that meditation. I've been away for a couple of weeks. Well, not away, but away from you guys.
Yeah.
I found that incredibly powerful.
Yeah. And
like, as far as meditation goes, it almost felt like a workout, the progress of it. Yeah. And I took on board when you said at the beginning, you know, if it doesn't feel relevant to you, and I really appreciate that. And also I want to say I very much appreciate the work you do to find the words that you use. I can see you trying desperately not to lead us somewhere. And you do it extremely well. So I did try to, I thought that I might have to stop at some point because I hadn't done it before. But I was able to follow all the way through. Oh. And I found it very powerful. It kind of took me places that I probably wouldn't have gone on my own. And there were moments where I almost didn't want to move to the step you were telling me to move to, but I knew the fact that I didn't want to move to that step was probably why I should try to.
Nice, very nice, well done. Great.
So yes, it was very interesting. I think I would do it again by myself. I don't think I could do that every day.
Yeah, no, that's fine. No. To meet your point about the workout, it's I know exactly what you mean, and it is part of this is what I also like about this as a approach to it is because it kind of has it all. It's like a travel kit, you know. It's got all the and so, you know, it does take us to if we're having a day for it, it does really invite us into the depth and the stillness and all of those things. But exactly, Rebecca, as you're saying, we're also working with the agility. Where we're developing the concentration to stay with the practice, and we're developing an agility and a flexibility with the mind and the way in which we kind of relate and move through these states of consciousness. And this is very, very important. The kind of the inspiration for this practice is actually through one of the Tibetan practices that I do. That the first time I did it, I think I wrote myself a note, and it was something like I compared it to being on like the Luna Park Big Dipper, right? It was like you're on the kind of you're going through all these kind of things.
And you're like, okay, I'm okay. All right, here we go.
And there's something, you know, it's a very good thing to do because we can get really stuck with our methodology and our approach to practice. We can get stuck, and so part of this is really kind of shaking up that place, so putting into practice that sense of not getting kind of grounded or rooted, stuck in the form of practice, but really kind of loosening that up. And it really highlights exactly as you said that sometimes we don't want to move on, not because we're not kind of ripe for it, but because then actually we've now can start to realize that there's some attachment to the pleasantness of the experience. And we're kind of,
when you said, I think a couple of weeks ago, when you were saying something about, you know, are you ready for that change? And I saw a few people nod, but my reaction was, no, I don't. I'm really not.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes some of my experiences throughout my meditation journey have led me to reach a point where I can be quite fearful, although I know I can't go backwards. It's not an option anymore. But I have been quite fearful, and I have had times where I've had to stop because I just can't go on anymore. And that practice you just did, I think, was the first time in a couple of years where I felt supported to take a little step.
Yeah, nice.
And so thank you. That was good. Oh, and also there was a beautiful moment, and it was sort of like about 2/3 through, an aeroplane went over my house.
Yeah.
And I kind of sensed it. But then I sensed the change of sound as it moved over my house. It came through your speakers. And it was such a sense of being together, you know, as we are all separated at the moment. And this is lovely. But to hear that sound, it was just... Cool.
Gorgeous. I think we had, was it on Monday? It was one day that the train was going past and somebody made the same point. Was it last week? And the train was going past, and so there was that sense that everyone was kind of in with the West crew, kind of hearing it cruise past at different points. It was quite sweet. So yeah, lovely. All right, my friends. Well, there's been quite a lot of voice time for me. I'm sorry if that's been too much for you. Thank you for your patience. Is anyone feeling like they'll be disappointed if we round up now, that they're kind of on the edge of their seat with something to say? Don't want to cut anyone out. All good. All right. I'm glad you could all make it. It was lovely to see you all. Do send me messages if you like. If you're in the tea room, I posted a letter from Guruji. It's sweet. It's very clear and relevant. And so if you're on Facebook, head to the tea room and look at that. I haven't put it on the main page, so you need to go into the tea room for that. And there'll be a new link for the Monday sessions that I'll put up in the next couple of days. Okay. All right. Mwah. Lots of love to you all. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.